Hi everyone, and welcome to this video. As you ended up here, you probably know that Microsoft introduced a set of hardware limitations for Windows 11 when it was first released that would prevent it from being installed on older hardware. Fortunately, there are ways to work around that, and as Microsoft released a new major version of Windows 11 called 25H2, I will show you in this video how you can upgrade your Windows 10 installation or a version of Windows 11 older than 24H2, like 23H2 or 22H2, directly to that latest version of Windows 11 25H2. There are multiple scenarios that might apply to install or upgrade to Windows 11 25H2 depending on your starting point. To make things clear, I created 3 separate videos covering each of these. This video is, as I mentioned, about performing an upgrade to the latest version of Windows 11 25H2 when you have unsupported hardware and are still on Windows 10 or an earlier version of Windows 11 like 23H2 or 22H2. In case you are already on the previous version called 24H2, you can use a slightly easier method covered in the video for which I will put a card here now and for which you can also find a link in the description. If you want to do a fresh installation of Windows 11 instead with that latest version on unsupported hardware, there is a third method for which you can find a card to that video here now and to which I will also provide a link in the description. You can also find a step-by-step written out guide for each of these scenarios on my blog, janzi.be, for which you can find, as you might have guessed by now, a link in the description as well. Windows 11 theoretically requires your machine to support Secure Boot, have a TPM 2.0 module, and your CPU to be on the list of compatible models. Fortunately, it has been possible since the beginning to work around these limitations, and so far, unsupported hardware has been able to run Windows 11 without any issues. Performance is pretty good and similar to Windows 10, updates are working fine, and all in all, everything works just as you would expect. What does require some additional attention is that with each major update, as was the case last year for 24H2, the year before for 23H2, and now as well with the latest version 25H2, the methods that you can use to skip these hardware checks during installation or while upgrading do change a bit and need to be done manually. For this video, I'll be using my Dell Optiplex 9020, which I also used in the past to test and play around with Windows 11. This machine is about 10 years old now, and currently I have Windows 10 on here. As you can see, and about this PC, the machine is equipped with a 4th generation Intel Core i5 CPU, which is not supported, and the version that is currently installed is Windows 10 Home. Just for clarity, this method will work equally fine if you want to upgrade to Windows 11 Home or Professional, depending on which activation key you have available, of course. If you want to take a further look in the Windows 11 compatibility of this machine by using Microsoft's PC Health Check tool, we can see that, as we already knew, not only the CPU is unsupported, but we also don't have the required TPM 2.0 module, and I can also tell you that Secure Boot isn't enabled. In other words, without any workarounds, we wouldn't be able to install Windows 11 on this hardware. One thing that I do need to mention here before you upgrade is that since version 24H2, Microsoft started to rely on a specific SSE 4.2 CPU instruction called POPCNT. This is a real hardware limitation. Unlike the requirement for TPM 2.0, Secure Boot, or that previous list of CPU support limitations, this means that CPUs that do not have this instruction built in will not be able to run 24H2 or the latest 25H2. The bad news is that if you would have such a CPU, your system will no longer boot anymore after upgrading. The good news is that your CPU needs to be over 16 years old for this to be the case. For Intel CPUs, for example, anything that's an Intel Core CPU or newer, which was introduced back in 2008, or for AMD, about everything that got released after the same year, does have support for that instruction. So, unless you have a really old CPU, you should be fine. If you do have an older machine and would like to still run Windows 11, you can still run 23H2 but cannot upgrade beyond that. For 25H2, we can use the same method for both Windows 10 or an earlier version of Windows 11. In short, we will need to download the ISO with the installation files from Microsoft's website and then run setup.exe with a specific argument which will bypass the hardware checks. To get that Windows 11 ISO from Microsoft, let's open our browser and navigate to the Download Windows 11 website. Theoretically, the media creation tool would be my preferred method here. The reason to use this tool would be because it can automatically detect the language of your original installation and then download the same version. If you have a mismatch, even if the display language is seemingly fine, you could end up in a situation where you can't upgrade and keep your files and applications. Unfortunately, at the time I created this, there was a known issue running that media creation tool on Windows 10. When starting the tool, it would show the Windows logo and then just disappear instantly. There is a good chance that this issue has been fixed by now, and if you want to upgrade from an earlier Windows 11 version, this problem doesn't apply anyway. So instead of using the tool, let's download the ISO directly. First, we need to select the version, which only lists a single option, then click Confirm. Next, we need to choose the language. It is better to double check which language version you need because the language displayed in Windows doesn't necessarily matches with the base language. As I mentioned, in case you would use the wrong ISO language, you would eventually end up without the option to upgrade and keep your files and applications as indicated here. So, to prevent this, let's open a command prompt by pressing Start, typing cmd, and then click on Run as Administrator. In the command prompt, type dism/online/get-intl. In the output, you need to look for the following line, Default System UI Language. As you can see, for me, this is set to NUS, so English United States. Now we can close the command prompt window and select that matching language from the dropdown. As you can see, it does have two versions for English, so make sure to select the correct one. Then click Confirm again. And when the link appears, click on 64-bit download and wait for the download to complete. This is a quite large file, so this can take a while, depending on your download speed, of course. Once it is ready, navigate to your Downloads folder and mount the ISO file. This can be done by right-clicking on the file and choosing Mount. Then click Open. If the option would be missing from the menu when you right-click, you probably have a different default application set to handle ISO files like 7-zip or WinRAR. In that case, just right-click the file and choose Open with Windows Explorer. That should mount the ISO file as well. After mounting the ISO, if all went well, you ended up with a new drive letter on your machine. This is like a virtual DVD drive which has the necessary installation files in it. In my case, as you can see, this is the letter D. Now to work around these hardware checks, we need to launch a setup program with a special argument. This is a method that was working for earlier versions as well. The older methods involving removing the contents from a file called upraise_res.dll are no longer working in recent versions. In order to continue with the upgrade now, we need to start the command prompt again, so press Start, type cmd, and press Enter. No need to run this as administrator. In the command prompt, we need to switch to that mounted ISO's drive letter. In my case, that was the drive letter D, so I need to type D:, and press Enter. Obviously, if you have a different letter, that is what you will need to use. Next, we will need to start setup.exe with the argument /product server. So type setup/product server and press Enter. Then click Yes to elevate privileges. This launches the in-place upgrade, and as you can see, it mentions here that it will install Windows Server. Don't worry about that, as it will just upgrade the currently installed Windows edition, which is Home in my case, but this will bypass all hardware checks. On that first screen, make sure to click Change how setup downloads updates, and then select Not right now. Click Next. Accept the license terms. Choose Keep Files, Settings and Apps to keep everything and upgrade the currently installed Windows 10 or Windows 11 operating system to Windows 11 25H2. In the final step, we still get a confirmation that we will just upgrade from Windows 10 to 11 Home, in case you would still be worried about that mentioning of Windows Server. Then click Install to begin the process and wait for your operating system to get upgraded to Windows 11 25H2. Obviously, this can take some time, but in my case it took around 20 minutes, which I think is pretty fast seeing the old hardware that I have. The system can also reboot a few times during this process, which is perfectly as expected. If all goes well, you should eventually end up to your desktop, but this time it is upgraded to Windows 11 25H2. Let's verify that in Settings, System, About. As you can see, we still have the unsupported 4th Gen Intel Core CPU here, but the version that we are running of the OS now is Windows 11 25H2. By starting WinVer, we have an additional check, but it shows us the same information, so it definitely looks like the upgrade from Windows 10 is a success and we're running 25H2 successfully on unsupported hardware. One last thing that I wanted to mention is something I saw coming by a few times in my previous videos related to Windows updates. As with the previous versions of Windows 11 and different workarounds, this is just working exactly as it would be on supported hardware. As you can see, updates are already being found and installed just fine on here. The only thing that you might need to take care of, most likely in a year or so, when the next major release is out, is that you'll probably will need to manually push your machine to that new version. I'll definitely follow up on that and will keep you updated on this channel. That was all I have for the video. I hope this will help you to extend the life of your machine. If you have liked this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Let me know how this worked for you or if you have any questions in the comments, and make sure to subscribe if you like these kind of videos and want to stay informed. Thanks again and hope to see you back here soon.